All right, hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar and thank you for joining. During today's webinar, we'll be covering some of the key features of the Accesso Siriusware Accounting Export module, as well as how it can help you simplify your accounting process. My name is Phil Schwartz. I'm the Sales Support Specialist here at Accesso, and I'm joined by Tyler Goforth, our Reporting and Integration Software Engineer. Tyler has helped over 20 Accesso Siriusware clients successfully implement our accounting export and will be providing today's live demo. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items so you know what to expect and how to participate in today's session. You may have already noticed that your voices have been muted. They will remain muted throughout the session. However, you will be able to type questions to our moderator throughout the webinar. At the end of the session, there will be a Q&A taken from typed questions. All right, let's get started. At Accesso, we believe technology has the power to redefine the guest experience. Everything we do starts with thinking about the guest experience first, which allows us to simplify operations, improve guest satisfaction, and drive growth for our clients. In the context of what we'll be showing you today, we feel that our accounting export will save you time and eliminate manual tasks, giving you more time to focus on other areas of your business. Before we get into the core content of the webinar, I think it's important to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about Accesso Solutions, which have expanded a lot in the past year. Although we offer 6 solutions, we think about those solutions in 4 different product sets. The first is Accesso Low Queue, which provides virtual queuing solutions to attractions around the globe. The second category is ticketing. In addition to our robust Accesso Siriusware point of sale solutions, we've also got Accesso Passport, our fully hosted and award-winning e-commerce platform, and Accesso Showware, which is a fully hosted box office and online ticketing solution specifically designed for the live entertainment space. Our third category is distribution. In 2017, we acquired a company called Ingresso, which is essentially a global distribution system for venues. And finally, our newest product, the Experience Engine, also known as TE2, helps marketers utilize guest data to deliver more personalized interactions. Together, our products and services support some of the top attractions in the world in 9 different markets. We are constantly working to improve our technology so that you can improve your guests' experience and the way things operate in your venue. We're able to achieve this by reinvesting just under $18 million a year back into our products, an amount equal to many of our competitors' entire revenue. Our Accesso Siriusware solution offers a wide variety of powerful features for your venue. Today, we'll be focusing on our accounting export module. So what is the accounting export? It's a highly customizable data export tool with a particular emphasis on financial reporting. It's set up to cater to each and every client's specific needs. This tool will allow you to export a daily summary of sales for import into your general ledger software. It is compatible with any financial software that allows batch import via text or CSV file. In addition, because the accounting export is a web-based application, all you need is a browser to access it. Let's start by taking a look at the ways the accounting export can benefit you. Our export will help you to automate many otherwise timely manual processes. We can utilize the information from your daily summary and map it to your GL software. This can be set up so that every day at a specific time, after your operators have closed out, the export will run and be ready for easy upload into your GL software. In addition to giving you time back, it will help to prevent manual data entry errors. Let's take a look at the software in action. I'd like to introduce Tyler Goforth, who will be providing today's live demo. So please bear with us for a second while I make Tyler presenter.
All right. Hello, thanks for taking the time out of your day to check out the accounting export. We're going to do a bit of a demo and show you how this software will give you back some precious time so you can get back to more analytics and less data entry. The software was created out of a need to streamline the financial data from our software. As Accesso Siriusware becomes more complex, we add new features. Tracking down all of the financial data can really become tedious. As your business grows, you might acquire another business with different financial needs. This can become a real headache to reconcile. So if we just kind of look at this here, we're going to see the web-based application that we have. And there's a bunch of jobs that we have available here in the application. We also have a section down here with the different options. So you can create a new job, you can edit jobs, you can copy an existing job, delete a job, view SQL. We'll get into this later. It's a really cool feature. You can preview a job, or you can execute the job and have it write to a particular file location. So let's go ahead and edit one of these jobs and take a look at what it looks like. So in the edit, we have the export rules, and the export rules give you the ability to, well, obviously put a title on your job. Also, you can select the file format, which is either CSV or text. You can select the date that you're going to be using, the default date for the days prior to execution, so you can run multiple days prior, rather depending on your financial flow that you have at your venue. The file location that you'd like to write this particular export to, and each export can go to a different location if needed. A custom filter option, which again, we'll talk about a little bit later as we start to dive into these. And then we have here some stops that will make it so the export will not execute if your sales points have not been closed out or if they've not been finalized. And so this allows you to kind of make sure that all sales points and all information is included in each of the exports. And then you have the ability to execute at a particular time. So you can set the time to automatically export the information and write it to the file location. In the file definition, this is the actual file format that it's going to have. So we have all of the column labels at the top here. You have the data type options, some formatting options, and then all of the different columns that we have. You'll see how this kind of plays into creating the file as we go. And we won't get into too much detail, but it's just important to understand that this gives you all of these different fields within the database and the ability to use a custom expression and utilize any of the additional tables that are referenced here and aliased in the custom expression. So there's just a lot of options for you to use. And you can also drag and drop these columns around to resort them if needed. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at a export job. So first, we're just going to look at the daily summary. So the daily summary, just like you would see in Report Manager. And when we run this, we're going to see there's a couple sections that I've created here. And so this is a section for our revenue. And so these are all of our profit centers that came through with the amount and the date for the particular closeout that we're looking at. And then we have our taxes and fees. We're actually utilizing the label that we have defined in SysManager for the tax. So we can grab the actual label that we're using and we're used to seeing in the system. We have the account activity and account payments and credits and charges here. And so this is just like in our daily summary where we're seeing any of the activity from things like reservations or AR accounts. And then below that, then we have payments. And so we have all these payments broken out right now by specific payment type. We could roll up these and say cash and check are going to go in as bank deposits, and American Express, Discover, MasterCard, Visa are all going to come in as a credit card, and we can roll up those totals if that's how you'd like to see the data come across. And then additionally, we actually have included overshort in this particular example, and so this helps us to identify any overshort so that our day is balanced and included in this single export. And you'd be used to a normal daily summary where we run the daily summary and then have to run the overshort report externally to get that overshort value. So it kind of rolls it all up, and even just this step without any other customizations is going to save you time, because any manual entry that you used to have to do to get these numbers into your GL will be alleviated by exporting it into a file that can then be pulled up into your GL software. So even if you don't have really custom needs, this can be very, very helpful and a great time saver for your organization. As we move down here, we're going to build upon that daily summary and just kind of see how powerful this tool becomes. So here we're looking at the daily summary and adding in a column here for the account. So this has the account value for each of these profit centers that we've entered in as user-defined fields in the system. And so that gives us the ability to pull it in and separate it out by those particular account codes. We also have account codes for our fees and for our state tax. And then down below here in our account activity section, you'll see that there's more than just those 2 entries now, because we have different accounts that have different account values on them that we're pulling into the export. So now it's separating it out by each of those accounts. You can see here we have an account charge to this particular account, and you can see the account payments and credits that actually balance that charge out. So all of the products that were posted on this account were paid for on this account on this same day. And then down below here, then also our payments now have a value for the account number, and our overshort also has an account number that we've included. So you can really start to save a lot of time by entering in all of your account information into the Accesso Siriusware database, and then you can utilize that to pull it into the export. When you create a new payment type, or if you create a new profit center, you can include the account code and it'll dynamically pick that up. You don't have to edit any kind of hard-coded transact SQL. It's just there and ready for you to manipulate through this interface. So we're going to take it again a step further. I know you don't think that we could go further, but friends, we're going there. Here we go. Look at this. Now we're actually looking at location as well. So I've added a location column here, which identifies each location using some lettered values here. So we have bar, reservations, tickets, and then you'll notice here also on the account code, now we have the account code, and then we have added a hyphen and the value for that particular location. So bar is location 2, reservations is location 4, we have retail location 8, and so now we've included the actual coding that we're using in here as well. And so this gives us the ability to really concatenate the account coding to include the location, include the account number, and any other information that you might need. So it's a really, again, it starts to get very powerful. You'll notice that still our total is at 0, and we're really just grouping this information differently throughout each of these. So now we're including the location and the account code to break out that info. So now, again, I know, you're all impressed. We're going a step further. Here we are, friends. Now we're at the account activity. So now we're going to show down here, this is pretty cool. We have the account activity with the actual account name. So we have the guest account, and then we show that it was a payment and credit to that guest account. So this is our default guest account, the default reservation account. You'll notice this default reservation account was coming from our reservation sales points, whereas down here, this is cool, you can see these two, and because this data is pretty clean on my system, it actually lines up quite well, but we have account activity from the web sales point for 550.01 in payments, and 550.01 at ticket that was on the reservation account that was finalized on that day, so products that were pushed out to their profit centers. And so in this example, you can kind of see that the web transactions were coming from here, the payments, and then all of them were finalized at a ticket sales point. And we'll see kind of how that can play out and be really cool as we move forward as well. But then also, like you'll see, our payment types are split out by the locations that they were sold to. And then overshort down here, we've actually added the payment type that overshort is relating to. So cash in this particular example from the bar. So now we can see the location and the payment type that was associated with this overshort. And then I've also included the cost of goods and inventory sold in this export. We wouldn't have to have this in a daily summary style export that we're running, but just to give you the indication that it is available to us in this export module. So we can export inventory activity, and we could do that in a separate job altogether and only have cost of goods and inventory sold. So we could really leverage that and have kind of an inventory export daily that gives us that information. So when we take this even a step further, we're going to look at what a real export out in the wild would look like. And this one, we're actually looking at a subsidiary. And so we have two separate businesses that are writing to the same database. So we have different subsidiary codes that are associated with each line. And then within these, we also have the information of the account payment and credit, like we saw previously. We've split out debits and credits, so they're their own columns, so each of them are lining up. You'll notice the totals still do equal the same, so that is a great thing. But you can start to see where all this action is coming through and how it's coming through. We have the account code. We've also added a department and a class and a location, and these are driven by user-defined fields throughout the system. And so we can set those up at the sales point level, anywhere within the DCI if it needs to be split out in some way there, and get that across. The other thing to note is we have a column like JE type. This is just a hard-coded value that's going to be in this export. It's a value that's required by the accounting software that this is being pulled up into. And so it gives us the ability to add those in there. So we have the ability to have hard-coded values when needed as well. Same thing with useful life years. This is just a 0 that is always going to be 0 for this particular export. So you're able to add in those and really leverage all of this to pull the data through and not have to do that manual entry where you're running reports for each subsidiary and then trying to get the locations of each of those to break out those numbers to get you down to that that detail that we're really looking for. So those are like pretty robust examples of what you can do, but then you can also go the other way and we can say, okay, well, we just want the account code and the amount. We don't care what the description is, but our GL doesn't need any of that information. All it needs is the account code and the amount. And so we can even, we can break it down to just a 2-column export that has that information as well. So this is, all of those payments and the profit centers are all mixed in here, but they're identified by their particular account code. So it really gives us the ability to get in there and do whatever we need. So we've looked at a lot of the financial, like GL export style stuff here, but we also can get into information like period sales. So if we look at this particular one, we want to see the period sales activity from the web only. So we're utilizing some custom filters in the job to identify the web-only sales points that were finalized at that ticket sales point, but were web transactions initially. And so you can see all of that information, and that comes to that 550.01 that we were looking at previously with that account activity. But this gives us a really great indication of all of the products that were sold on the web. And we'll look at this here just to show you. We have the ability here, this is our custom filter, so we can add in a custom filter that looks at the original sales point. Obviously, this requires some knowledge of the database to be able to get this to pull across appropriately, but it's a really powerful tool. You have the ability to really get at some really cool information, for particular venues. So if you needed, like, let's say, a retail venue that wants to see their daily sales in an export so that they can start to track some of that information and see trends daily that are happening, they can pull that off into a CSV file and have it on their desktop every morning. So it's a pretty cool feature outside of just using it for the GL. And then additionally here, we have like an accounts receivable export. We could preview this, and this is again another great use of the export module where we're looking at any AR account activity and pulling it out into a daily export where we can see the payments that came through that were AR payments, and we can see the products that they purchased. So you can see there was a $100 deposit on this, $475 account charge for this particular Boy Scout troop. Again, we have Club Moose down here. They have no payments on this particular day, but they have a bunch of product that was finalized on this day. And so you can start to pull daily accounts receivable exports to view that information and track it. So it really gives us a cool way to identify that information, see it coming across. And if you set up your process for entry appropriately, then you can have things like the contact name and contact email to be able to reach out to those particular accounts. So it really have a lot of really cool features here to be able to dive into some of that data and see all of this coming across. So yeah, there's a lot of things we can do, and this is a brief demo into what it can do. And at this point, we're going to switch back screens here. I'm going to go over to Phil's screen, and we are going to look at the PowerPoint again. So we'll switch over. And we're going to talk about kind of the whole process here. So for a standard accountant who's dealing with the products and process that we have, then you can see we have the daily summary report that you would be running, the overshort report like we talked about to get at some of that data. history for accounts if you needed to dive into more detail, and you might have to run each of these reports multiple times to get at that data. Also, we have the account coding and to identify all the profit centers and the account code that it references, so some kind of a lookup table to get all that data pulled across that then would get us a GL mapping file that either we're entering as a GL like this, or we're keying in manually to our GL software. So there's a lot of steps involved to get to, as all of you know, but to get to a clean file that can be brought into the GL or keying those values into the GL. So you can really save a lot of time by having this module and having the ability to have those files exported each day and put onto the location that you need them. So it really becomes a really clean way to get all that data, and then you're just auditing the file rather than having to key it all in manually and audit it along the way. So that's really powerful. And so now let's just talk about the implementation process. This is a big question for a lot of people in terms of timeline and how it all works. The first step in our implementation process is the exploration. So in this, Phil would get an email from someone saying, hey, I'd like to pursue this. And then we would connect with you and talk with you about your specific needs, the export itself that you'd like to have in the end, and the daily activities that you're going through to get at that value, so that we can help to identify what we'll need to do to create an export that's going to meet those needs. So we'll talk with you about that. The next step in that is going to be the installation. The installation is a pretty quick process so long as we have all the system requirements in place on the machine that we'll be installing. It is a web-based application, and we would put this on its own server so that it can be installed in IIS and then it can be accessed throughout your site. And also the other piece besides accounting export is the export module, which is the actual service that writes the file to the location that you've specified. But the installation itself is a pretty quick and painless process once we have all that information. The configuration and testing, that component of this whole thing is really just working with you from that information we get from the exploration and creating a daily export job for you. And so we create that export job based on your needs, and we begin to test it. And what we do to test it is run all of your standard operating procedure for your GL export that you're doing today, and we match it up to each day's export that we're pulling out of the system from accounting export, and just verify that everything's looking right and it's been divided up and summing up everything the way that you would like it to. And we tweak it and make any changes we need to. And then the final step in this is just the go live. And in go live, all we're really doing is swapping that process and having you start to utilize the export and then utilize your core reporting as your audit process to verify values. But you're not running it every day to do your keyed in entries. You're really just doing it as a spot check and making sure everything is good and there are no changes that need to be made. So that's the implementation process pretty quickly, and kind of this goes back to that exploration we mentioned there, and that is we need some specific information that really helps us to drive the conversation for all of this. And so one piece is the name of the accounting software that you use. This is helpful to us because we've implemented over 20 instances of this at different client sites. And with the accounting softwares, generally they have a pretty straightforward component as to what can be pulled up into the accounting software. So we have templates of examples of things that we've done in the past, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel when we're doing the implementation. The GL import file or mockup. So if you're using a current import file, so you're generating your own import file and then pulling it up into your export, it's perfect. And we can just take that and say, okay, we'll use that, and that'll be the format of which we're looking to achieve with the export. The other option is if you're not doing that and you're keying directly into your GL software, then we just need to know what your GL software can accept in terms of the preferred file format so that we can get that pulled up into the software appropriately. And so we just get that mock-up that matches what it is that you need to get in there, and you can talk to your GL software provider to identify what you can pull up in. And then additionally to that, then we just need to know operationally what you're doing, whether you're doing sold on, closed on, or finalized on for the drawers for all your sales points. And this can be, we can have two separate exports, one for sold on export, one for closed on export. If you have particular sales points that have to be sold on, so like maybe your web, you don't need to close that out, or you're not closing it out, so you want to run web as closed on and everything else on, or I'm sorry, on sold on and everything else on closed on. We can absolutely accommodate that and create two separate jobs to do that. But we just need to know what it is that you need to do and the process that you're using. As we mentioned, kind of that mapping to the GL codes, we need a list of GL codes and how they relate to profit centers and taxes and payments and all of that, so that we can get all that information entered into the SiriusSQL database and have it all up there and ready to go. And so, yeah, we just need to get as much of that information in the beginning as we can, and that'll really make the implementation process a lot more seamless and quick to get all that information. So, yeah, we just run through that, get all that information from you, and then do the implementation and get all that data in, and then you get to start using the software and saving a bunch of time, and focusing more on the analytics of everything rather than all of the actual keyed in data entry. So really that's what's going on, and then it gives you the ability to kind of automate that process and adjust the export as needed as time goes on. So a lot of really cool features in this, yeah, it's a pretty cool module. And so at this point, I hope everything, it was helpful, and people have seen what this module can do and how it might help your process at your site. And so at this point, I guess we'll open this up to any questions that came in during the webinar here.
Thank you, Tyler. Our first question is, what fields are available to use with the accounting export?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, there are a lot of different fields in the database, right? And in the export module, we actually have the ability to pull any of the fields that are in the database, really. So any of the financial data fields, like in transact or sale header, any of that information, if it's in the database, we can pull it with a custom filter. We have a lot of fields that are kind of defined within those drop-downs that you can select from. And then, but beyond that, you can totally go in and grab, user-defined fields or check boxes or whatever you need for your export. So pretty much anything.
Great, thank you, Tyler. Our next question is, how quickly could I get this implemented?
Yeah, so the export or accounting export module is kind of a unique module in terms of the implementation, only because a lot of the implementation process is kind of on the client. So we need you to give us the information that like what you want as your mock-up for your export file, and have a machine ready for us to do the installation on. So once that machine is ready and we have a mock-up of what it is that you're looking to get out of the export, the timeline for the implementation is quite short. We generally are looking at like 6 to 8 hours of time to do the implementation, create the mockup file, and start testing. And that can be spaced out over time. And because each piece of it is really kind of at a couple hours at a time, we can fit it in between a lot of other larger jobs that are going on. And kind of fill up some time there. So we can implement it quite quickly, so long as we have all the information ahead of time. So yeah.
Great. Our next question is, if I have multiple locations, will this work for me?
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, the neat part about this is we have a couple different instances that this would be really cool. We saw in one of the examples in the demo the subsidiaries that we had. So we have two different companies, and those companies are all dumping into a single database. And so in that instance, we can split it out by company, and then within the companies, you can split it out by like sales point locations. You can have that ticket sales point and retail sales point and reservation sales point and web sales point. And so you can really break it out by company, break it out by location within the company. And then if you had, multiple databases with two different businesses at two different databases, we would just have to have two instances because each instance is looking at a singular database. But again, we could absolutely pull that off by having the accounting export module for each of those locations as well.
Great, thank you, Tyler. And our last question here is, can you tell me more about how the automated functionality works?
Yeah, sure. So the automated functionality, it is what all that's doing is we set the time in each export job, and each one can be unique, but you set the time that you'd like the export to automatically execute. And you can also set that to execute for 2 days ago each night, depending on your audit process that you have. So you can set it to the amount of days behind you want it to run and what time you want it to execute the job at. And then every night it'll just execute that job and write it to a file location that you define. And that can be on a network so long as the service has access to that network location. But yeah, so we can just kind of install it and have it running, and each job can be written to a different location. So I could have one go to my machine, one go to Phil's machine, and we could have different exports being sent to different locations. So, yep.
All right, thank you, Tyler. And thank you, Phil, and everyone for attending today's webinar, Simplify Your Accounting with our Accesso Siriusware Solution. If we didn't have a chance to address your question, we will follow up with you individually. If you have any other questions or would like to learn more about our Accesso Siriusware Solution, please contact sales@accesso.com. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 hours with a link to view the webinar recording for your reference. On behalf of Accesso, Phil, and Tyler, thank you so much for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.